It's spreading the gospel of Jesus Christ all over the world. The KITV network is available on Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, Cross TV, the KITV network, Roku TV, Android TV, HSBN TV, Google Chromecast, and Samsung Smart TV, plus their podcasts Spreading the Love, the Lord's Word taught in so many forms to so many people through talk shows, Bible teaching, gospel music, church services, and youth programs, and so much more available to you. The KITV network, from faith to faith and glory to glory. For more information, contact us at info@kitvnetwork.com or learn more at kitvnetwork.com.
Office one day, and I thought of this phrase, and the Lord dropped this phrase in my heart, and it was a phrase, I will not. Have you ever told anybody that before? I will not do that. I will not clean my room. I will not do those dishes. Come on, you know what I'm talking about. I will not. Don't see how close you can get to the fire without smelling like smoke. Somebody shout, I will not give in. Number 3 is this, and I'm moving quickly because I want my wife to come and share. Number 3 is this, I will not give up. Somebody shout, I will not give up. If we're going to go for souls and see a harvest, then we can't give up. The Bible says the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are what? But pray ye to the Lord of the harvest. If we were going to give it up, I would have given up 25 years ago when I started ministry, Pastor. You know what I'm talking about. But there's something in me that said it's worth living for. David cried out, he said, I will not give up that which cost me nothing. And the North American church don't understand sacrifice anymore. David rose up, he said, I'll give a sacrifice of praise, but we don't want to give anything up. But I'm telling you today, lay it all down, give it all up, and hand it all over. And watch what God will do in your life. Because there must be a sacrifice. You see, without a sacrifice, there is no fire. Without a sacrifice, there is no sacrifice on the altar. There's nothing that can happen without a sacrifice. But some of us need to realize we got to give some things up. You say, well, I didn't know it was going to be that hard when I served God. No, give it all up. Relinquish your control and let the Spirit of God take control in your life and watch what He will do. Shikarabasa, watch what He will do. Walt Disney, you remember him? He went bank to bank and he was asking them for money because he had plans to transform a swamp area into a theme park with a cartoon mouse, but he never gave up. Then after Magic Kingdom was built, and then Epcot Center, it was opened after his death. And the comment was made as people were there, what a pity Walt was not here to see it. But the result was this. Walt saw it, and that's why it was here. I'm here to speak a word to you today that sometimes you got to see by the eyes of faith. You may not see it through your physical eyes, but you're not led by your physical eyes. We walk by faith and not by, so you need to learn to be led by your spirit, man, not by your physical eyes that you see. Many of us in this room could have given up many times. But you didn't. You're still here. There's something about a man and a woman that perseveres. Diane, I'm going to ask you to come if you would. Because I want you to hear a real-time story, a real-life story. Because how many know that people go through stuff? But God is greater. So, Di, share with us if you would.
October 31st, 2011. I was sitting in a hospital room, a doctor beside me, and in the hospital bed was a man named Dave Hamada, who I had married in 1990. He was a pastor, and he was even an evangelist and would go and preach at camps, and he loved to preach and he loved to lead people to the Lord. And I sat there, and the doctor was beside me, and Dave was sleeping, and the doctor said, "This is likely not going to turn around." And I couldn't believe that he was saying that Dave was going to die. He had been through so many things, sicknesses, illnesses, over a 10-year period, and he had always come back. He never gave up. And this was different. The doctor was not joking around, and I couldn't believe it. And so when I went to tell Dave that this was likely not going to turn around, he looked at me and he said, "I have to finish my book." Now, through this time, Dave had gone through cancer, testicular cancer. He had gone through a tumor in his bile duct, many surgeries. And God had asked him to write these things down. So he wrote these things down, all that he had learned and the different things, and he was working on this. And he even had a liver transplant in London, Ontario. We were there for 5 weeks. And he came back from it all. And as he wrote these things down, he was being inspired and seeing all that God had done in his life and what he had learned through this. And he just didn't want it to be in vain. And so this was what was on his mind when I was telling him this. And I told him that I would finish it. What else was I going to say? I had to help him not give up on that dream that he had. But I wasn't giving up that he was going to die. I wasn't giving into that, and he had come back before, and I knew, okay, God, you can do this. You can heal him. And on November 11th, after a lot of people had come to visit, we had many prayer meetings. We had prayer meetings right in the hospital room. I had a Facebook group where everybody was praying for him and believing that God could heal him. On November 11th, I hand wrote on paper that it was about like that size, healing verses. I taped them all up on the hospital room walls. And he laid there, and he was not talking. He was unconscious, and just he wasn't there really. But I was believing that the healing could come. And I prayed and I worshiped. I had worship on. And there was a real presence of God in the room. And it was about 11:30 at night, and his blood pressure started dropping, and my 15-year-old daughter was in the room with me. And we decided that all of the tubes and all of the machines and everything that were on there, we said, you know what, just don't even worry about it. And as his blood pressure dropped, I knew that the time was coming to an end. And the interesting thing is that my oldest daughter had gotten engaged in 2010 and was going to be wanting to get married November 12th, 2011. But then she changed the wedding date, and she changed it to July 2011. And Dave was able to walk her down the aisle, and we had a beautiful time, and because we didn't even think he was going to make that. And we had a beautiful time of family together. And then November 11th at 11:30 at night, I'm realizing that November 12th, her original wedding date, was coming up in half an hour. And I said, wow, Dave, you're going to do this on November 12th. And at 5 to 6 in the morning, after I sang over him, I kissed him goodbye, and I let him go. And I said, okay, God, you can take him. And I believe my God was waiting for me. And I did that as a sacrifice. I know it was a sacrifice. I didn't understand what life would be like without Dave. It was Dave and Diana, 21 years married. I didn't understand what that road was going to look like. And so I let him go, and he passed away, and I watched him take his last breath in sickness and in health till death do us part. Don't say those words lightly, because you don't know what life is going to take, where it's going to take you. But my God has been faithful all the way along. My God has been with me through hard times, through good times, through bad times. And all the things that I learned with Dave, I was able to take into my grief journey. And as I let him go, and as I walked out of the hospital, 41 years old, a widow, as I wore that, as I walked out of the hospital and understanding my new role of who I was and trying to figure that out, who this new Diana was without Dave, I didn't give up. I kept on going and knowing that God still had a plan and a purpose. Jeremiah 29:11 says, "For I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." So what does that verse mean when my husband died? Because there's harm. That's hurt. That's pain. But knowing that plans to prosper you, that knowing that God is still in this. He still has a plan, even though my plan was running out. Because I didn't understand what my plan was without Dave. But it was truly continuing on and not giving up and knowing that he still had a plan and use for me just by myself. And so I went through this grief journey, and there's many victories that I went through of letting go, and but 4 months in, as I began to read some grief books and get some healing taking place, and it is quite the journey, the grief journey, but I decided that if I wanted to move forward, that I needed to even have a plan of action. And so I put a prayer list together, and I called it the New Husband List. And I actually have in brackets beside it, wow, crazy that I would even do that. Now, it's not that I was going online and trying to find somebody and doing that, but I just knew that there was someone out there in the world that probably needed a good wife. Because I did and passed the test. I did it. I went and I completed my job as a wife the first time that I thought, surely I could do this again. There's many people that don't get married after someone died, but I really enjoyed being married. I enjoyed sharing my life with someone, working with someone, sharing my life with someone. And I thought, surely there's someone out there. Surely there's someone out there that needed a good wife. And so I began to pray into that. And I even put on there that I wanted a ministry team. I wanted someone that liked to travel. I put like a couple of these things on there. And I didn't know really what I was writing down. I just put it out on the page. And then I just continued on this grief journey. And I lived in a small town in Saskatchewan, Nipawin, Saskatchewan, of 5,000 people. I began going to a grief group in our funeral home because our church didn't have one. And it's a very important part of life that every church, my church didn't know what to do with me, and my husband was the associate pastor, and they really didn't know what to do with me. I had to get myself together to go to church so that I wouldn't fall apart. That's the sad thing. We need to be able to come to the church to be ministered to and to know that it's okay if we're not having the most amazing day right away. My feet were like in cement sometimes, going there and thinking that, like, how do I do this? But nobody really knows what to do with a widow or someone who's died. And so I was just learning myself. When somebody would say, well, let us know if there's something we can do for you. And I honestly couldn't tell you what would take my pain away, right? I wanted someone, to take my pain away, but no, it wasn't going to happen. And so it was a matter of experiencing the pain and letting that pain have its time, and then let go of the pain, and then God would bring the healing. So there's many things that I would do as I went along. I had to disempower the hospital where he died. I needed to go back to that hospital room 11 months later, and walk through those halls and realize he wasn't there anymore. That hospital had no power because he was where he knew that he was going to be when he died. He was home with Jesus. And that is all about what salvation is. That is all about why we trust in our Lord, is for eternity. And what I learned from Dave was about how we needed to focus on eternity, and that his life was done here, but he knew that God was going to use his sickness to bring others to Jesus Christ. So while here I am sharing with you, and his story is still being told, and it's not in vain, but it's about eternity, because I know this life is just a little while. It's just a little time. So God, whatever you want to do, we sing about it, don't we? Don't we worship and we say, God, do whatever you want with my life? If we're going to sing that, we've got to mean it. Because if we take God and say, okay, God, do what you want with my life, sometimes it's not going to be pretty. Sometimes it's not going to be nice. But that's where the trust comes in. And we're trusting and we're not giving up. And we're knowing and we're believing that God still has a plan. God still has a purpose for me. And that he was going to take me into a new life. Something different. Something I never thought I would have. And after about 14 months of going through my grief journey, I started and began to talk to Greg Gill. But the cool thing is that Greg Gill and I knew each other in 1998. And he knew Dave. And I believe so plainly that God knew in 1998 and 99 what I was going to go through in 2011. So he had to set that meeting up so that August 15th, 2014, which is coming up on Tuesday, that I would marry Greg Gill. And so God has a plan. God has a purpose for me. And we are continuing on. And the exciting thing is, and there's many things I could say. I could be here for a long time sharing all the amazing things that God has done, but the pains that I've gone through, but that God has taken me through. But in March of this year, I finally was able to put together Dave's book called Getting Well at Being Sick. And this is a closure thing for me to have been able to have finished it. 11 chapters were written by Dave, and then the rest of it was finished by myself and my 3 daughters, Alicia, Jessica, and Krista. And we finished it and told how his illness and ultimately how his death has affected us. One of the healing things that went through was reading other widows' journeys. Helped me go through my grief journey. And I'm like, I want to be able to help other people through what I went through so that it wasn't in vain. And I just want to be able to encourage. So all of the pain and trials that we go through, that's where God is going to use them. And that's why we don't give in. We don't give up. We don't do this. We keep on going on and knowing that God still has a plan for us and trusting in that. And it's a beautiful plan. It doesn't look like how we would have done it. But he puts it all together in such a beautiful way, and I'm very thankful. Thank you so much for letting me share.
Somebody shout, I will not give up. Bottom line is for Di and I, God's given us a second chance. To every one of us here, God's given you a second chance. God's given you a third chance, a fourth chance, a fifth chance, a sixth chance. This is a place where it doesn't matter what you've done. It doesn't matter what you've gone through. It's a place where you're loved. And you need to know today that God has not given up on you. People may give up on you. People that you think believe in you may give up on you. But God didn't give up on you. And the fourth point is this, is I will not let go. Jacob, in the book of Genesis, as he wrestled with God, he said, I will not let go until you bless me. There's some of us believing for souls of our friends or our family. And we're so frustrated because we're ready to give up because we don't know if it's going to happen. But God says, will you trust me? Do you believe that I'm big enough? Do you believe that I can do what it says I can do? See, the book of Acts says household salvation shall be for you and me. So we need to believe for the harvest. We need to believe that God is able to do that which he promised he would do. And that nobody has gone too far to come to Jesus Christ. You know, as a pastor, and I close with this, as a pastor for many years, and when I went through a divorce, which I never saw coming, never knew would happen. I thought, Pastor Rob, I thought it was over for me. Because I grew up in church that said once you get divorced, you're done. You're thrown aside. Ministry is all I've ever known. And yet the very relationship that I needed the most was the relationship that fell apart after 14 and a half years. And I said, God, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I was pastoring the church that I started, which was my dream. God put it in my heart. You knew me, Pastor Rob, when God put it in my heart to plant a church. It was because I was with you guys that God spoke to me. He said, plant a church. And at 7 years, that dream came crashing down. And I didn't know what I was going to do, and the church kept going, and friends came in, helped pastor did, and it was such a blessing. And I've only shared this one other place before, Pastor Rob, so I hope you don't mind me being real. I went and worked at Starbucks. Now you got to understand, Starbucks is my favorite place, okay? I'm very committed to Starbucks. Like Di and I, every day we go to Starbucks, and we do it together. It's the thing. We stopped at Starbucks before we came this morning, even just to have a little Starbucks. But I started working there, 38 years old. Here's a big guy like me. Can you picture that? In behind the counter working at Starbucks. All these 18, 19-year-olds buzzing around me. They could mix the drinks. They could do all this. And meanwhile, I'm looking at the book like this, trying to figure out what's a non-fat, decaf, ristretto shot, extra foam. I was like, what kind of syrup? I'm like, I don't know how to do this. So I kept going back, and then I was like, you know, in pastoring, at least you can make your own hours a little bit better. I was walking in at 4 a.m. to Starbucks to set up the pastries. And I was like, this is not God for my life. This can't be God. And I do it, and 3 months comes, and 3 months you're done probation, right? So I walked in, and I phoned the manager at the end of the shift, and I said, can I meet you tomorrow? And she said, sure. And I went in and I said, you know what? This 3 months has taught me so much. It's taught me I'm not made for this job. And she said, well, that's good, because we were about to let you go. I said, glory be to God. It all worked in my favor. Hallelujah. Woo! So I'm 38 and I can't even work at Starbucks. I feel like a failure. Barista is one of the hardest jobs you'll ever get, by the way. But I feel like a failure. And then I go drive a dump truck for a landscape company. And then I start cleaning banks late at night. And I'm like, God, you haven't called me to do this. He spoke and he said, yeah, but I never gave up on you. Maybe you're the one that gave up on yourself. Oh, come on, somebody. And I don't know where you're at today. I don't know what you've done. I said, God, I'm not going to let go till you bless me. I said, God, I know the plan is greater. I know the plan is better. And I know that you were one that called me, not some denomination. Not some church board didn't call me. It says the Spirit of the Lord, not the Spirit of the board. But the one who is faithful and who has called you. 1 Thessalonians says, He will do it. And I'm here to prophesy over you today, my friend, that if you don't give up, if you don't go down, if you don't give in, if you don't let go, the one who has called you and is faithful, he will do it. He will do what you couldn't do. He will help you get those souls you thought you couldn't get. He will get those people to you. My God, he will do it. Why? Because he loves you. You can't do a thing. You can't do a thing to make him love you more. But I have loved you with an everlasting love. And I know I was supposed to speak on a specific thing, Pastor Rob. I couldn't get away from this, so I hope you don't mind. I hope it's okay. So I said there's got to be somebody here that feels like throwing in the towel. You know what? My wife and I have been there. Your pastors have been there. Every one of us in this place has been there. Just some of us are too proud to admit it. But look at this final verse. I want to look at this last slide. Let's stand to our feet if we could. Thanks for listening today. You're an honor to preach to. Blessed house. Because this verse, the very last slide, sums it all up. Out of Hebrews chapter 13, verse 5, the Amplified Version. All the stuff I've told you is summed up in this verse. Listen to what it says. For he, God himself, has said, I will not leave you in any way, fail you, nor give you up, nor leave you without support. I will not, in any degree, leave you helpless, nor forsake you, nor let you down. Relax my hold on you. Assuredly not. Now I want us to say that together. Could we all preach it together? 1, 2, 3, ready, read. For he, God himself, has said, shout it out. I will not. Now I want you to take your right index finger out and turn to the person next to you, and I want you to preach it at them. 1, 2, 3, ready, preach. For he, God himself, has said, I will not leave you in any way, nor fail you, nor give you up, nor leave you without support. I will not, in any degree, leave you helpless, nor forsake you, nor let you down. Relax my hold on you, assuredly not. Somebody give the Lord a mighty shout in this house. Give the Lord a hand of praise. Thank him that he hasn't forgotten you. Thank him that he hasn't forsaken you. Thank him he's never let you go in Jesus' name. But he's always held on to you. Woo! Hallelujah!
We trust that this broadcast has been a blessing to you today. And if you want to stay in touch with us and find out what's happening here at Ever Increasing Ministries, we encourage you to go to our website, www.myeim.org, and you can follow us there. Also follow us on Facebook at Ever Increasing Ministries. If you feel like you'd like to be a partner financially with us today, you can also go to our website, www.myeim.org, and give on the Give Online section there of the website. Thank you for tuning in today. We'll see you next time, and we trust that God will continue to ignite you with the fire of His Holy Spirit.